Hey folks, it's Akitsu and welcome to The Void Beyond the Sky, episode 2. I do apologize if I mess up on this because I've recorded this about 6 times already. Whining cat, all sorts of interruptions. Whatever happens this time, I'm just going to keep on going and get this done because there's not really much to say in this episode. Last episode, I launched my ship, forgot that I needed computer control in order to keep my probes functional and trackable. So here I am redesigning it. I've added a bunch of sensors, Sputnik, a few other little bells and whistles to try and get this to be a good result for when I actually do launch this design and try and test it out. But at the same time, I'm not trying to fix something that's completely broken anyway. If I wanted to, I would have to completely pull these probes out, redesign them from scratch, redo the launch system, everything. So I'm going to do that in another episode. This, however, will tell me what I need to know about orbital mechanics and how these are going to separate and basically how they're going to perform. Now, as you can see, I've had to hack gravity and put on unbreakable joints, but if you watch the original Void Beyond the Sky episode without the numbers on it, that is without hacks, and I almost got up there twice. I got into almost orbit. So, with a little more power or a little less weight, this design could be viable. And it actually does have some interesting design work on the separations and everything else, where everything's kind of connected in certain ways. But like I said before, it's a broken design. I don't want to have to deal with it too much, so I will be redoing it in a better way. Now, as you can see, I have hacked gravity, and now it's time to unhack it. I did leave on the unbreakables just for now because I really don't want to screw this up. Okay. Now, rather than try and get this into a different orbit, I'm just going to go ahead and launch my probes and see what happens on this orbit. It's fairly nice. I like the lights going on when they do fire. They're all hotkeyed to 6. When 6 gets hit, it turns on Sputniks, it turns on everything. It opens up the solar panels. Unfortunately, the solar panels are really fragile, so when you fire, it leaves a debris cloud of solar panels, which means that these probes aren't really getting energy. So, I'm surprised they're going as far as they are and separating as much as they did. Now, I did notice when you go back to the Space Center and you come back out, for some reason the engines get cut off, which doesn't really help. I was hoping on a constant full thrust from them once they were launched, but that doesn't seem to work with the ion drives, which is strange. So I'll definitely have to look into that. But as you can see, that launch has a nice separation to the probes, but because of the fact that they are so close together, they are on the same orbit no matter what, and that's really not what I was hoping for. As you can see, they did have a little bit of an influence with curving, and 2 of the probes did separate out. So, I mean, that's kind of what I was going for. I wanted to have gravity from the other planets come in and play with the probes and eventually move them out, but it's just not working. So, when I do actually launch this next time with the new design, I may actually go on an elliptical around the sun to see what happens with that on a close solar approach and launching right as I'm at the terminus. The way I figure, the minor variation between that on the probe will actually speed them out in different directions all over the system, which would be ideal. But as you can see here, it's kind of nice to see all the probes actually hanging out together. when you do zoom in, you cannot see the probes no matter how close they appear on this. They have lights on them and everything, but you cannot see them. Now, here's the beauty shot. This thing looks beautiful in orbit. Really just stunning. I love the way the shadows play against it. But I mean, let's face it, this is at, 10,000 times X? So, to get this kind of effect, it's going to take a long time. These poor Kerbins are sitting there going crazy in their capsule. Okay, there's one of our probes. As you can see, he's a little happy guy with a little pointy nose. Yeah, I think that's about as much of a spread as we're going to get on the probes. Which, when you think about it, isn't really that bad. It's maybe a fifth of the orbital path. Here's a close-up Kerbin in time-lapse. It's really pretty. But I mean, this is definitely not a short-term kind of thing. These probes are going to take a long time. So, let's try that again. This time I put on infinite fuel and did a maneuver to actually get a nice elliptical, but again, I really should have set it up a little bit better. I forgot to take off the infinite fuel, so when I do launch these, it's gonna be not the right result anyway, but it will be interesting to see how they actually differ. Yeah, see how they're spinning all crazy? That's because they do have a Sepatron on there. And the Sepatron with the infinite fuel, needless to say, gives you a much wider spread than a normal Sepatron. But still, look at that debris. It's beauteous. Okay. So here we go with that. It's a much wider spread because of the fact that those are still firing. Which leads me to believe if I do redesign it and put real engines on it with actual fuel instead of the ion drives, I might be able to get a nice spread out of it. I really do want these things to kind of just go off in their own direction. But I mean, as you can see from here, I'm trying to maneuver the ion drive, and even at full power, it's not doing anything. There's too much damage to the solar, the electric charge isn't lasting, and as much as I would love to leave it on over time-lapse and see what happens, it won't let me do that while it's throttled up, so let's just take her around the block a couple times and see how she pans out. Now, as you can see, I'm pretty close to a planetary body here. I can't see it at all. So, I mean, unless you know exactly what you're doing, you're not gonna see. Now, this is an extremely wide orbit, so unfortunately it takes forever to go around the sun. But it does have more separation because of that, and because they're all on different orbital lines. So, let's try it on a shorter orbit towards the sun. Okay, here we are, extending all the solar panels. And I forgot to turn off the infinite fuel again. Arrgh. I think I actually did get the fuel turned off quick enough so that it didn't continue on. It seems to be if it's within a certain amount of area from your ship that the influence of it is. I don't know, it's kind of weird. But as you can see from this, it's not separating out nearly as much as the other one. It's a much tighter orbit. So, let's just fool around. I'm tired of doing the same launch over and over and cheating, so let's do a non-cheat quick design just to see what happens. This is basically the same design aesthetic. I'm using the 8X for the basically for everything, just because it's a quick way to build. Yeah, as you can tell, this is just a really quickie design, just for fun. Next episode, I promise, no cheats, and I will actually be designing a real ship instead of just a fun ship. But for now, it's more fun to just watch something that you know is going to explode. UFO alien boom. And that's disturbing. Didn't even launch. Here we go, trying it again. This does not bode well, but the good thing about Kerbal is the more times you try and launch something, the more likely it is you will get a launch. So don't be discouraged if you have a design like this and you don't think it's going anywhere, because after this one, I actually do get it up. Here we go. And it's actually pretty nice and stable once everything stops wobbling. Until I do that. That's the whole point. Okay, here we go again. Nope. So, back to the drawing board, I believe. As you can see here, I'm adding more support, so I'll get rid of the wobble. And of course, more engines. I'm going to put some regular jet engines in the center here. And of course, symmetry is not helping me at this point, so I'm going to have to do it manually. But of course, it takes me a while to actually figure that out. There we go. And there's a couple gaps I'm going to fill on that, so there we are. Nice and secure. Unfortunately, as you can see, when you have a design like this and you let everything rest on that engine, if it's too much weight, it's going to crush your parts and destroy you. So I do recommend, if you do have a ship like this, it's overweight, you don't let it sit on its engine. Go ahead and put up the red launch bars. As you can see, I'm not that bright. Okay, back to assembly. Let's throw some more boosters on this thing. Still not going to put up that launch stuff yet, because that would be smart. And why do something smart when you can do something silly? Yeah, that didn't work too well. So now I actually have a launch platform to support everything. And I'm thinking about doing this hedgehog design, but then I said, you know what? It's got enough problems, I don't need to kill it. So let's go ahead and just make another stage. Just some parts to throw off at the top, since I know it's going to destroy itself anyway. There we go. Some Sepatrons on there. Now, as you can tell, I'm not taking this serious at all, but that's the fun with Kerbal. You can just spend an hour, which is all I spent on this, and make something that kind of flies. Now, I really should have put parachutes on there, but I'm not really doing this seriously, and I don't really care, so the only thing that's stopping me here is the jet engines, and it's not really enough. Then again, I didn't really intend for the jet engines to actually stop me. I just put them on there for fun. Ooh. Okay, let's try this again. Little wobble, but little wobble never killed anyone. And yeah, maybe a little wobble did kill somebody, but ooh, sorry, Mr. Kerbal. Jump out. Anyway, this has been a Kit 2 and Void Beyond the Sky episode 2. I do promise episode 3, no cheats. I will be redesigning a ship, so I'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in.